guys, what is going on? Welcome to this week's breakdown for the Tour Championship, the last event of the season. Gonna do it a little differently this week. I already have kind of a model queued up, so we'll look at that. Draftkings strategy is going to be really important this week, so we can talk a little bit about that, but more detailed update to come probably on Wednesday when we have a sense of ownership and all of that fun as well. Before we get into that, though, just maybe two updates. So one, obviously, you didn't hear from me over the weekend. My whole family's been sick. I've been sick. I'm still trying to get over something too. So if you had heard from me, I would have said about the BMW Championship, basically looks like our all-in on Bryson strategy is working out pretty well, right? So he was at the top of the leaderboard the entire time. Sadly, could not come through on Sunday. Patrick Cantlay opened the door for him a few times to close it out, but he just couldn't get it done. So I also probably would have said in a weekend update, good time to consider hedging, since it really was only down to him and Cantlay at that point. So I actually did hedge out on Saturday night, which is great because I probably wouldn't be alive today after watching that playoff and how that went through. Or how that went down. So good on Patrick Cantlay. He had a record-setting putting week, so he gained almost 15 strokes putting, which is the most by far an event ever since things started being recorded in 2004. And I believe Bryson gained almost 8 or 9 strokes off the tee, which is also one of the highest for a 72-hole event ever. So these guys were the extremes. So that's basically what it took to take down Bryson. You needed a historic putting week. So good on Patrick Cantlay. He came through in the clutch. That playoff will be one that I think we all relive for a while. So similar to the Rahm DJ showdown from last year, but I'd argue this one was better. So we'll put it to bed. Personally, I then locked up a nice little win for the BMW Championship. My thinking was obviously the Tour Championship, going to keep it light. This isn't a great betting opportunity, and then season's over. So next week there's nothing going on. And I guess the Brooks versus Dave Portnoy thing, but no PGA Tour event next week, and then we kick off the new season with the Fortinet Championship, or Fortinet. I don't really know how to say it yet, but replacing the Safeway Open. So that's coming soon. Kick off a new season, but we got the Tour Championship, so talk about that a little bit. But hopefully you guys had a lot of fun locking in Bryson. If you tailed along with this last week, hopefully it turned out to be a profitable week, either betting or fantasy or otherwise. So on to the Tour Championship. So we have a staggered start, right? So based on FedEx Cup standings, Patrick Cantlay is going to be starting this thing at -10, and then we kind of scale down from there. Only a handful of guys, I would say, have a shot at actually winning this event. I know you can go out and bet on, without starting strokes, kind of who wins this thing. But to me, it still impacts how people play. So I just don't know that I love the idea of betting on anyone from an outright perspective this week. So I'm going to cool it on that, save some bullets for the new season, the swing season, and just kind of go heavy on fantasy. So I think there are some strategy things that we need to consider this week. I think we obviously want to take a look at the stats and the model, but there are only 30 golfers in the field, so it's probably a good week just to lean into ownership leverage a bit more, because everyone's going to be seeing the same stats. So something to consider. There's not a whole lot, I think, of an advantage in terms of modeling this week. But we can take a look at the course, take a look at who kind of sets up well for it. Like I said, I do have a model teed up. But before we get into that, let's just take a look at maybe the course breakdown. So East Lake is a course that we know pretty well. We've seen it a lot throughout the years. It obviously always hosts the Tour Championship. In terms of the setup, it's a par 70. It's a long par 70. It's about 7,300 yards. There's 2 par 5s. They're pretty gettable. There are some birdie holes out here, but for the most part, it's really tough for guys to gain strokes to really make up the starting strokes lead. So that's what I mean when I say only a handful of guys can really actually win this event. And everyone else, you're just kind of playing for a top 10 potentially. So, and there will be guys that do that. There will be guys that make a charge that are kind of sitting at even, -1, -2, that will make a run at it. But I think they're just going to ultimately come up short. So you want to consider that when you're setting up your lineup. So we'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the keys to success at East Lake, it's really all about approach and being accurate off the tee. Because if you find the Bermuda rough at East Lake, you're going to be in trouble. So while last week Caves Valley set up really well for Bryson and his bomb and gouge, that is not going to play here at East Lake. So we got to find guys that are good on approach, hitting fairways, good driving accuracy. Those are the guys that are going to be set up for success. We do have Bermuda greens this week, so we know that some guys are going to get hot with the putter. Usually it's guys that putt well in general or putt well on Bermuda, so we want to take a look at that in our model as well. We do have 5 par 4s between 400 and 450 yards, and another set of par 4s that are closer to the 450 end of the range. So for the most part, guys are going to be hitting it from 150 to 175, 175 to 200, and 200 plus. So those are the 3 key proximity distances that I've plugged into the model. And like I said, I think this is a week where driving accuracy is going to be more important than driving distance. So again, we've seen this throughout the years. We know how this is going to go. It's just a matter of finding the right guys that can get us there. So let's take a look, though. I did just want to show you guys, here's last year's strokes gain data. So obviously DJ won it. He had the starting position, but he obviously played well enough to win, and JT finished second. But Xander was the guy that really ran up the board, and he did it almost all with the putter. So this is what I mean. Like, I think guys can make a run at this. This isn't, yes, we can find the best statistical plays, but there's going to be an outlier like this that happens. So just lean into it, right? So get a little weird with your lineups, leave some salary on the table. Kind of play out some different scenarios, right? So with Patrick Cantlay starting at the top, debatably he's not going to gain 15 strokes putting again, right? What do you need to see? Who can catch him, right? So get 2 guys that are going to most likely finish 1-2, hopefully overtake him, but then find some guys, some diamonds in the rough that can really make up ground and make a charge for a top 5, top 10. I think that's the key, obviously, but setting up lineups in a way that you're not like betting on 4 of your golfers. You could start Cantlay Rahm, but then you're betting on 4 of your golfers making a charge from even par. Like, that's not going to happen, right? So just lean into some of that stuff this week. Considerate of how guys are getting it done. But guys like Scheffler and Morikawa gained a lot on approach last week. That's how they made their run. Sanjay too. I think this is a good Sanjay course. So, and he's obviously been in really good form anyway. So we'll probably have a lot of Sanjay this week, but this is basically, it's hard for some of these guys at the bottom to make the charge, especially if they're not playing well. So some folks' games do set up better for East Lake. So as a way of trying to capture that or identify that, queued up a model. So basically, a lot of weight on approach, a lot of weight on proximity 175 to 200, hitting fairways, good drives gained, Bermuda putting. Birdie or better, I think, is important from a Draftkings perspective, because guys that finish 15th could actually outscore guys that finish 7th or 8th just because they've made a lot more birdies. So bringing that in. Other key proximity ranges, like I said, 150 to 175, 200 plus. Opportunities gained with small weight, par 4s, the long par 4s with some weight. But then the interesting thing, so I'm bringing in historical experience at East Lake because I do think that helps. And I'm bringing in historical experience on comp courses. So places like TPC River Highlands, TPC Southwind, those places, Sedgefield, those places tend to play very similar. They're all par 70, for the most part, par 70 Bermuda tracks. So we're going to look at who's excelled in that space as well. So when we run the model, see how this shakes out. Oh, what happened? Hang on. May need a reset. I think I know why. Because I can only look at one thing at a time. That's why. I can't look at Draftkings and my model. So anyway. So here we go. So obviously Cantlay's starting out at the top, but Tony Finau doesn't really set up as a great fit here. He's obviously starting 2 shots back. Bryson as well, kind of rating out towards the bottom of the model. So the guys that really pop, obviously Rahm has played well here in the past. He's also arguably, he is the betting favorite. If you were going to bet, he's 3-1. So Vegas has given him a pretty good shot of running down Finau or Cantlay over the course of 4 days. I think he's a really solid play. the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause on Rahm, so if we just double click into him real quick. So did not gain on approach last week. Did it almost all with the putter. So, I mean, it's Jon Rahm. He can rebound very quickly, but he did slow down over the weekend, right? So if he's going to be pretty popular, he's also, I believe, 13K on DraftKings. Yeah, 13K on DraftKings. I think you could get away with going a little bit further down the board. So guys that I really like personally, you know, obviously you have some strong value plays like Berger and Morikawa. Berger is obviously really cheap and rating out number 1 in the model. He is starting at even par, I believe, and he's 5,800. He's going to be insanely popular for good reason. Everyone else's model is going to have him rating out near the top. I don't mind taking a shot on Morikawa, though, this week. So Colin Morikawa, I think, is 8,300. Yeah, 8,300. He gained slightly on approach last week. Did not do his normal thing off the tee. Lost a ton with the putter. But if we go round by round on Morikawa, this is why I like Fantasy National, by the way. You can do all this stuff really fast. Look at his last 2 rounds at the BMW. So he's a guy that was injured, or he says he was injured coming out of the Olympics, but he's had some really good approach rounds. If he's going to be really low owned, I really like the idea of going to Morikawa, and he's played well here in the past. So Morikawa would probably be one of my favorite plays in the 8K range, along with guys like Victor Hovland, who are rating out really well. Let's see. Brooks at 7,800 is kind of enticing. Sanjay is ridiculously cheap at 7,300. So these are all guys that I like a lot. And you can basically do whatever you want at the top then. So other guys, you know, JT is at 11K. He'd be another guy just based on the stats. I mean, he's coming rating out 12. Him and Xander, I think, would be 2 really strong top-end plays for me. And obviously Rory, I don't know what to do with Rory yet. So Rory, I was wrong about last week, kind of. So he obviously played well. He finished tied for 4th, I think. He did it almost all with the putter. So, like, betting, you know, again, when we talked about fading Rory last week, he's not a good bent grass putter. He did all his damage at Comp Course Quail Hollow with the putter. Those are Bermuda greens. He's a much better Bermuda putter. He lost on approach the week before. Like, that was all true. That all came to fruition. He did not gain off. He gained like 4 strokes off the tee last week, so kind of the Bryson mold. But he lost on approach, and he gained almost 6 strokes on and around the greens. Like, that's insane. And at Eastlake, obviously the off the tee game is going to play. Rory has some good experience at Eastlake, but depending on ownership, I think it could be a good fade, right? So Rory's 9,300. If you can load up on guys down here, right, like your Morikawas, Hovlands, Sanjays, right, and kind of mix and match pieces at the top that are above Rory, I think that may be the play this week. So that's kind of how I'm looking at things. I think, you know, obviously Rory's rating out really well, but the last 2 events he has not been as dialed in with the iron. So something to consider. A little bit further back, guys that have played well, obviously I mentioned Justin Thomas. He's been in good form. Corey Connors had a really nice Sunday to make a charge. I could totally see using him as a value play this week. So for me, like, again, we'll get into more DraftKings strategy probably on Wednesday. But for me, my plan is to basically build around 2 guys that I think can make a charge at the top. So guys like Justin Thomas and Xander probably would be my leans at this point, and maybe Rahm, right? So get those guys in, and then get a couple guys that are starting, you know, 6 shots back, right? So like Sanjay starting 7 strokes back, guys that are rating out really well in that area, and then maybe grab 1 or 2 guys, be different about it, that are starting at like even par, right? So if you build like a Rahm Berger start, like a lot of people are going to be doing that, right? So I think it's a good week to even leave some salary on the table, right? So maybe go Rahm, instead of Rahm and Berger, start JT and Berger, right? Leave some salary on the table, because at the end of the day, like, you're kind of looking at 1v1 swaps of some of these guys, right? So you could conceivably have the optimal lineup with, you know, just swapping out Rahm and JT or something like that, right? So consider that as you're building this to get a little bit different. I think you can leave, you know, quite a bit of salary on the table this week. So that's my initial look. Again, guys that maybe aren't rating out as well. The EVR train, I don't really know what to do with this week. Billy Horschel could, in theory, gain a ton putting. He obviously won the Tour Championship like 10 years ago, but I don't know. Some of these guys aren't maybe the best. Guys like Finau and Spieth, though, rating out very poorly. So you could make the argument that that's a good game theory kind of move to use them. I don't know if I'm going to do that myself yet or not. But again, guys like Bryson, I'm not sure that the game really fits this week. Same with like Joaquin Niemann. So more to come. I'll give you definitely some more thoughts on kind of lineup construction. I think you, like I said, build some like player groups, right? Like try and get 2 guys from the top end and 2 guys from the mid range that can make a charge, and then the best of everybody starting at even par, right? Like it'll be a good week to kind of build around some different groups like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my Tour Championship preview. Definitely feel free to use some of this if you are gonna make any sort of bets. Again, I'm not super interested this week. It's just gonna be a nice little fun fantasy sweat for me, but that's about it. So more to come. Stay tuned for an update video on Wednesday. We'll go through kind of DraftKings lineup construction, ownership, strategy, double click into some of what I'm talking about here. These are some of the top guys that I'm looking at. So if you learned something, if you like the content, as always, please give the video a like, subscribe to my channel. Comments always much appreciated, and we will talk soon. Thanks, guys.